All right, well, if I got to do it, I'm going to video it. She's dusty and dirty because she's been sitting because the clutch is slipping. So I got to get it up on jack stands and pull the transmission out, see what's going on. I think it's probably either the clutch or the slave cylinder needs to be adjusted. So there's a little throw-out bearing slave cylinder that sits in there, and I have a previous video on when I installed this originally, and that needs to have a specific measurement on the shaft. Otherwise, it will cause the clutch to slip. So I'm gonna, either way, I have to put it up in the air and see and get the transmission out and see what's going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and video that. So that's the style shifter I have. I already took the shift knob off the top there, but essentially what I'm gonna have to do is get underneath the carpet here. So in order to do that, I have to pull the, what is this thing called? This guy out. And then I gotta pull the kick panel out down here, and then pull the carpet back. If I pull the carpet back, then I can get underneath there, and there's a couple bolts inside of there that will let me take that shifter off, and then we'll be ready to get the car up in the air. And it should let me get this up high enough so that that's up like this. I have 3 bolts that are going to be on here, and that'll get me another step further. There we go. Okay, with those 3 bolts off, I believe, yeah, this comes up, and there's 2, well, you can't see them on this, on the other side, but there's 2 Allen keys that hold that in. I'm gonna just undo those, and then we should be good to take that off. All right, after a little struggling, I got that. So now that I got the shifter off there, I'm gonna go ahead and roll the carpet back just so it doesn't get kind of deformed sitting like that. Because who knows how long it's going to take me to get through this. So I'm going to roll that back, get this up in the air, and then we'll be starting on the tranny. So for now, I'm just going to get a drain pan under it and get the tranny fluid out of there. All right, it looks like I have 2 options on this hydraulic line. So this hydraulic line comes in from above, from the master cylinder, obviously, into this little panel. I already took the bolt off, but that was screwed on there. And then the panel doesn't have any way of taking it off without cutting it. It just kind of sits there, and so I would have to kind of get this out of the way, try and get in there and get a wrench in there and get that off the slave cylinder. Probably not going to be easy. So what I'm going to do instead is right there is the master cylinder. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it from the top of the master cylinder. Unhook any, zip ties or line holding clips and stuff out of, and just let that drop down with the transmission. That's going to be a lot easier to get to, even though it's not super easy. You can see it right there. That's going to be a lot easier to get to than down there inside of that little panel. All right, I got that disconnected from there, set it in the drain tray. So now we're gonna have to go after the speedometer, which looks like something came loose there, but we'll get the speedometer disconnected, this reverse lockout, and then what else we got? This guy up here, the reverse lights, I believe is that one. So I'll get those three disconnected, and then I'll be able to start taking the tail shaft off. All right, I got the electrical out of the way. This is the neutral lockout. I think I said reverse lockout earlier. It meant neutral lockout. I got the reverse lights off, and now I just pulled the O2 sensor because that was going to be in the way. It kind of stuck out this direction, so I didn't want to hit it and ruin it, you know. Last thing I have connected is this speedometer, which is up here. So I'm going to go grab the wrench to pull that off. That should be pretty straightforward. And then I'll be pulling those out on the tail shaft or the drive shaft. One thing I noticed when I was taking off the speedometer was that the brake cable was up here in the way. So I went ahead and pulled that apart. Now it's back out of the way. So we'll leave that head just hanging like that, and we'll tighten it back up when we're put everything back together. That should be out of the way for pulling the transmission. All right, I got everything disconnected underneath yesterday, so there's the drive shaft kind of sitting there. And then all the wires and everything are out and disconnected. Now I've got to get these bolts off. I don't know if you can see those, but right there and right there, there's a couple of bolts holding that. And then the other side might be harder to see. There's a lot of stuff over on the driver's side of these. There's probably a couple more there. You can kind of see them. So I got to pull those off, and then the transmission mount underneath. It's going to be easier to get to those bolts underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those two right there. It looks pretty straightforward. I can get the wrench in right here. So I'll get the wrench in, put the sheeter pipe on it, and bust it loose. All right, I got the two bolts off on the passenger side. There was two on the driver's side, and then there was two on the top here. One on basically either side of the transmission attaching to the top of the engine there. The transmission's pretty much detached from the engine at this point. Now I just need to put together my transmission jack that I just bought. Yes, I buy from Harbor Freight because I'm cheap. It looked like a pretty decent little transmission jack. And then there's a cross member. I don't know if you can see it, kind of right there, that I have to pull out. So I'll get it on the transmission jack, pull the cross member out, and then hopefully be able to drop it out. Okay, I got the transmission jack kind of sitting under there now. I went ahead and pulled, there's two bolts here that hold the transmission to the cross member here. And now I'm gonna pull these, I already pulled this one here. There's two and two there. Pull those bolts and try and drop the cross member. Well, I got those bolts out, but not enough clearance with the exhaust to be able to pull that out of there. Other side's even tighter. So I've thought of a couple of things here. One is I can pull those bolts out from the collector to the header and let this drop down a little bit. Maybe that'll give me enough room. Those bolts are a pain in the ass though, I can tell you that right now. I've had to tighten them down. The other thing I have is those two bolts on the that connect that transmission to the mount. I can go ahead and pull those out. So I'm gonna try that, pull those out. Hopefully that'll give me enough clearance to drop that down and then move this whole thing out of here. So I'm gonna give that a whirl. All right, well, taking those off didn't work. Still don't have enough room to slide this out of here. It hangs up on the top over there when I pull it this way. It's the same on this side when I pull it the other way. So pretty much just gonna have to pull those out and drop them down and see if this gives me enough play, if I can drop this down to get enough play to get that out of there. Okay, so I pulled those bolts, Pain in the ass, especially that top one. Ugh. And then I pulled the first mount there, not the back mount, so I just left that mount. So now I can pull this guy out of the way, which is what I was after. And I should be able to drop the transmission. I'm gonna have to use two hands to do this, so not recording that part. So I'm gonna give that a shot. All right, well, I got the transmission kind of pulled out there, and then I ran into another issue as I try to slide it back here. It's running into the header over here and on the other side. So it's just too narrow. Those headers kind of come down and in like so. So passenger side header is a lot easier to get to, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop that header off there and get it out of the way. All right, I got the transmission completely out and disengaged, and here's the cool thing. Not really cool. There's no way I'm getting this out from under the car. But that's okay, I'm not really working on the transmission. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll it back as far as I can. I'm gonna look at the clutch. I'm gonna look at the front of the transmission where the slave cylinder is, and do it all from under the car rather than try and pull this thing out. All right, well, I got the clutch out and it's definitely worn. So, time for a new one. I think it's twofold. One is that this clutch was rated for up to 550 foot-pounds of torque. This engine is a monster, so I think I'm gonna try and get something a little bit beefier. I think I'm actually gonna go with the twin disc clutch. It'll be like twice as much for the price. I mean, it's like $300 versus $700, but for this engine and to not have to do this as often, I think it's going to be worth it. The twin disc clutches last a little bit longer, hold a lot more torque, and just overall I think would be better for this car. So time to hit the internet to order my parts.